Welcome back. On this screen, we want to hit Scald and Gallow to head back to Samael. In these warp zones, we'll basically be sword dashing to get close to the portal, then infinite jumping across any gaps. It's a little awkward to dash on the stairs and the rising tiles, but just do your best. Remember about letting go of left click to go down stairs more smoothly. Once we warp out, just double jump left to trigger the cutscene, and after the cutscene, we'll be dashing forward and left to jump off Samael's platform. Jump to the road, going under the chain, and dash forward until you see another autosave icon. This lets us know that the area ahead has been loaded. We want to jump on top of the door and skip over the next few rooms. It's relatively safe, so use forward infinite jumps and some dashes to make your way to the far side. And when infinite dashing, try not to cancel out of the dash too early. There's a delay on the startup, so it's best to let the animation mostly play out. If you drop down a little bit on these smaller rooms, you can get the minimap to load, which is useful. We'll be looking for the 2 sewer pipes sticking out from this hallway as our cue for the loading zone. Try to keep your height and drop down in the middle of the ceiling. If you're low and approaching from the side, you'll activate the orange circle while still over the void, which is sometimes hard to recover from. Now we just turn around and look at Drowned Pass, which should have loaded in. Dash along the top of the tunnel until near the grass, then jump to the left and go for the water. It doesn't start where the texture suggests. It's actually pretty far back, near this first underwater cave you see. Once you reach it though, the water extends under the entire map, so you don't have to worry too much about falling. We want to follow the path on the minimap to where the Vulgrim location is, and then jump next to the ground to trigger it. Once we get it, we should be able to swim under the main part of the room and use the minimap to navigate. We want to stay low to go under the first cave, then start to ascend as we start to pass the second one on the right. As we come up, we should start looking for the sewer tunnel. If you see the golem, it means that you jumped off the tunnel at the start of the Drowned Pass late. The loading zone for the next area is on the left of the start of the sewer. I am for these small floating rocks under the ground. You'll see crystals appear on the right if you got it. Once it's there, we can swim to the next part using the cliff texture as our guide. When the cave pops into view, we'll swim to the surface and stick to the edge of this room. There's a gap in the water between here and the next section, so we'll jump a few times after we pass the fan. Swim along the outside until the end of the water texture. The water stops existing a bit after that. We want to jump next to the wall to the top of the pipe ahead, and if you aim for the left, the loading circle won't pop up, so it's a little bit safer. Once on top, if the background hasn't changed, walk a little down the pipe until everything goes black. This unloads the previous area, and then we'll just continue jumping in the direction we were heading, and we should see some stuff load in. This area has ground underneath, so it's pretty safe. You'll find that there are some invisible cliffs you can't see though, so keep your height when trying to dash. I think I bonk against the side of this building before it's even loaded. Jump in front of the door to get the dungeon entrance to load in, and if you get stuck underneath the stairs, just use the action key on the door to pop back out. The next loading section is the small connecting hallway you can see on the minimap, so we'll head there. Now, going underground, you want to get to the height of the tunnel and go between it and this room on the minimap to load the dungeon entrance. You should see the background subtly change. Keep jumping forward past this first section of tunnel and keep going until you get to the ceiling at the top of the stairs. Going above or below doesn't matter here, it's just preference. Walking from here will load in the dungeon fully, which appears as a ton of floating doors in the distance. Jump out and aim towards the door that's second from the left. We want to go a bit under it so that we load the minimap. The way the dungeons work in Darksiders is that the structure of them is basically completely loaded, so by using doors or other markers to jump into the coordinates that the rooms or triggers would be, we can activate them. We can also open any of those floating doors to force load what's behind it, which we'll be using later. The south tunnel that appears on our right has 2 different loading zones. The first is pretty early on, and the second is halfway through. We'll keep our distance until the second one, and then cut in at that point. You'll know you get it when the orange loading circle comes up, and then we'll continue infinite jumping after the load, and we'll be going into the opening that just loaded. We just need to sword dash through this corridor and jump down to get to the big chest for the dungeon. Attacking in midair is slightly faster than landing, then attacking, so we'll do that. This dungeon has undergone the most route revisions in Darksiders. We'll be taking a modified early strat. There's one version with very little infinite jumping, but it's worth learning the consistency for that now. We want to dash down after the fist cutscene to spawn some enemies, then start infinite jumping and spin our camera around. We'll be heading back up to where we dropped in, which is to the northeast on the map. We won't be going back in the tunnel, we'll jump all the way up to the rocks on top, then jump out to the northeast. We'll more or less be retracing our steps back to the main room, and once we pass this invisible screen, a bunch of doors appear. The four in the middle are the ones we're aiming for, and as you approach, head to the backside of the closest one on the right. As you jump close, you'll see the action prompt, so take it and hold forward. While we end up in the room, we don't want to go this way, so just turn around and jump on top of the ceiling. We'll be dashing along the inbounds route, but jumping to cut all the corners, and as long as you're a couple of jumps up, none of the scenery here has collision, so it's safe to dash. Just running along the top should activate all the triggers. You'll see the next room sections load in as we go. And apparently there's a trigger here for the claw to grab you. Let me just back up and jump over it this time. And when we get to this cave, jump over the bend in it and keep heading up. The big room should load in after a second, and we'll jump up to run around the edge. At the bridge on the end, drop down to the left and jump through both of these supports to hit the next loading zone. Make sure to land on the small square hallway though. Now we just dash left on the next ceiling and just make sure the room on the left loads. This one's important for loading the boss room, so jump on top of it, then drop down to the starting platform and watch the lighting change. You'll also see that the bats at the end of the room will appear. And without this, the boss room won't load correctly, so it's important to hit this spot. After that, we just want to jump out of the room and turn left about 30 degrees to go to the boss room. There's a few ways in once we land on top, but the hole near the front of the room is the best. The fastest way to break the crystals is to jump and right click. So go ahead and break the 4 groups, and then we'll dash back to the cart to activate the boss. After the cutscene, keep dashing to the back, break the last crystal, and punch the cart into the boss by holding right click. We'll use the railroad ties to space ourselves for the second hit. I used the 4th one from the edge of the wall. Then we'll grab the cart again when it stops and punch it back. Now dash forward 4 times and stand on the edge of the shadow here. We can skip a scripted animation if we get away from the boss quickly enough. So after breaking the chest, dash away and get behind the cart. Go ahead and grab it, but resist the urge to hold right click and wait for the cutscene. As soon as it does start, you can buffer right click, and near the end you'll hear it start to charge and you'll cut back to Griever getting hit. Just re-grab the cart and punch again. After the last hit, dash in and use Chaos Form and the quick kill combo to finish the boss. Now we just wait until the portal appears, dash forward to get into it, and teleport to Ulthane. Now we have the gun, which changes our ground movement drastically, so I'll address that in the next part. Thanks for watching.